Live from Rural Pente, this is Derailed Trains of Thought.
It's freezing here.
It's rather chilly. It was getting colder back at home, but this is outright
Ridiculous.
frigid.
Yes. Well, why did you bring me here, Nick?
I did not bring you here. This is where the podcast brought us.
Oh.
The podcast has supernatural powers.
Apparently.
Yes.
Well, as long as it doesn't start flinging us into the ear and like making lists about everybody we know.
That would be good.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All those lists.
Yes.
But wrong place. We're on Rural Pente. We had a rather dreadful time in the Commons earlier.
Yes.
You gotta do that fight and you kick the guy in the kneecap.
The natives are not too friendly here. We'll just say that.
No, not at all. So, anyways,
But, yes. Welcome. This is Derailed Trains of Thought,
this is Nick.
and this is Tim.
In case you've never known us. So, Tim, do we have any just kind of news for this week?
Updates? Well, I don't know that I have much in terms of updates. I know you just had a book signing recently.
I had a book signing here in Kendallville, my first one for the Unremarkable Squire. I actually have one tentatively set up for in Goshen.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a couple months. They're booked, but that should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this month only, you do a review of the Unremarkable Squire on Amazon. I will write you a flash fiction.
Yeah.
Which
You've had one of those so far.
I had one of those, and I really had fun. It ended up being about twice as long as the flash fiction. It's a good story. So The Path Ends, if you want to go check it out.
And I have to admit, I need to catch up on. I need to catch up on my Nick Hayden reading.
I've been posting quite a bit of stuff lately, actually.
You have. You had the short story, The Clock Tower, which I still need to read. Then apparently there's another short story. What was it called again?
The Path Ends.
The Path Ends.
And actually, I have another one typed and just needs one more editing. That's called Behind the Curtain.
Okay. Wow. So you have been busy.
And I have one in a notebook called Childish Fears or something like that.
And another one called Twilight Dawn.
Twilight Dawn. No. I have also been working on book 3 of Straight and Fred.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I've been typing up old chapters from my notebooks.
Good. Because I know you're going to be doing a Children of the Wells novel.
I know. I'm trying to get some Straight and Fred popped out first.
That's a good thing. I'm proud of you. Yes. I'm very proud of you.
So, shall we just dive right in here?
Yes. Let's jump right ahead here to
Story School.
I suppose we should also mention real quick that we are still streaming live. So if there's anything you're listening to this through iTunes and you hear anything that's really weird going on, that's the live nature of our beast now. Yes,
and we've been attempting to get all the wrinkles ironed out.
Maybe not entirely successly yet, but
better than last time, I think. Right now, hopefully you're not hearing music over top of us.
Yeah, I don't think that should be going on. Don't have Aaron interjecting, butting in all the time, but you never know.
Yeah, someone might drop by.
Hopefully, that'd be cool.
So, this actually Story School was suggested by our listener Greg.
Yes, he suggested this quite a while ago, I think. He re-suggested it shortly before our return last time, but he had suggested the topic of suffering in stories. And
that's a wide topic, and actually I'm qualified to talk about it, considering Tim mentioned I was doing a Children of Wells novel soon.
Yes.
And suffering is kind of part and parcel of that particular episode.
Well, especially since it's post-apocalyptic fiction, but without spoiling anything, we'll talk. We might dance around that one as well. A little bit, yeah.
So I guess I want to first introduce the idea that obviously any good story has conflict.
Yes.
And conflict inherently has some sort of suffering to it.
Mm-hmm.
So suffering is part of the nature of drama at some point. So the problem is then, how much suffering do you put a character through? Why do you put him through? Losing a puppy and finding it again is very different than, your entire planet being blown up.
Yes.
Which has happened to numerous people in fiction for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, Leia, Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure others somewhere.
Yeah. It's funny too because I remember hearing. I don't remember who said this, but in one of my classes at at Regent. I remember in an online class we had where people do a lot more, chatting about themselves in some sense in online classes than maybe you would in a classroom setting. But anyway, one of the people that was in that online class was a writer, and she said it always strikes me as really funny how I can spend so much time thinking about how to put these imaginary characters through some of the most awful situations that I would never want to go through myself. It's a weird beast in a sense in that sense.
Because, like, as a reader or a watcher, you want a happy ending, but you simultaneously feel gypped if the character doesn't suffer some sort of challenge, suffering something. I mean, you don't want him to lose his whole family and lose his arm and get cancer and all this other stuff within the whole movie. I mean, that'd be horribly depressing. But
if all those things happen,
yeah, simultaneously.
that'd be the story of Job.
That would be the story. He didn't lose his arm, but he could have, I guess.
No.
But I don't know if it's too early to bring it in. So I'll bring it in now, and then we can always
backpedal.
Backpedal. No, but I was thinking from a Christian worldview, we tend to believe that suffering has a purpose.
Yes.
That suffering is not necessarily just useless. I mean, it seems like it sometimes, but that we tend to have the belief that God uses sufferings can use suffering for specific purposes. And I think that's not too far off how many writers view it.
Mm-hmm.
That suffering, it has some story purpose, and I think the argument comes down to, is that enough to warrant it? Because I'll just throw out my Battlestar Galactica example again.
Well, okay. Before we get to that side of the Battlestar Galactica side, I think you need to talk a little bit about, because you have been quite infamous yourself in your own stories of making your characters go through hell, basically.
Okay. Well, with Mason actually.
Yeah, with at least one character, that's a literal situation. But let's name some of the characters. Mason is one. You did also the Wells and the Revolution. Yeah. You've done it to Obed. Mm-hmm. Strin and Fred have both gone through quite a bit of that. Timothy, a character not named after me, but has an awesome name regardless. That's in the Adventures of Strin and Fred.
Obed a little bit.
Yeah,
not as deep as some of them.
And probably I'd say a girl called Snort.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the same extreme.
Same extent. Not to the same Kalia and Jonah Wells.
Kalia, definitely.
Coming up.
So why? Tell me, Nick, what inspires you to do these things to your characters?
What inspires me to do these things? I am evil.
I guess I guess we should say too. We've named a lot of names. What did they actually go through? Well, let's see. One character fell into like a bottomless pit, and basically, after he had been simultaneously burned, hanged, and poisoned.
Yes.
Another character basically got assigned to be the servant or the prophet to a maniacal king who hated him
and liked to make him suffer.
Basically, Kalia, she had her arm and leg basically burned off,
and then the only thing she actually valued in life
was taken away from her. Yeah. So these are
among those things. Yes. Among other things that happen to my characters.
Yes. So now that we've put some situations behind all these names that we threw out there. So, back to the question, why do you do these things? What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with me? How dare you? I think many times, and I remember talking about this, especially back with Mason in The Revolution, which we need to put out there for people to read at some point. But I used to talk with people about breaking characters. That it was important, I found, that most characters have some sort of flaw. Even mostly good characters have some sort of flaw to them, and until they face that flaw, they can't move past it. And most people, you don't just say, hey, you're prideful, or hey, you're too timid, or hey, whatever, and it happens, and they're like, oh, you're right, I'm going to change. Most times, they have to get beat up a little bit, either physically or emotionally, and then they change. And I guess in my conception of writing many times, I'm very much a character writer, but to change characters, they have to go through crap, generally. And you don't want to be, okay, this is going to sound horrible, mean. It is mean. I'm horribly mean to my characters. I mean, I just am. But I feel like the problem is some of my characters I have a lot of very stubborn characters.
Yes, you do.
No implication on the artist. But, and I think that adds a special, you need certain things to come up together to break a stubborn character or a character who, no, Timothy from Stren Fred from Trouble on the Horizon, and he's still changing in book 3, but he's a very timid person. He doesn't want him. He's very unsure of himself, and then he's got to be prodded into a point where he'll take a stand, and that's a very common thing in general for characters to do. You push them to their breaking point, and then they change. But I think putting them through those ropes in a way that highlights their character, and I guess highlights it not just in the sense of how good they are or how bad they are. Because sometimes I think how they respond to suffering can be a truth, even if they respond badly to it. Like, given this choice, what they should do, and then they don't, and that can be a truth to explore just as well as Stren from Trouble on the Horizon, especially Revenant in Dreams. He kind of rebels against this. He knows he should be taken to the Empress. He's wrongly imprisoned, basically. And he doesn't like, he's like, I'm right. And he is right. And so he kind of rebels against it, and he reacts kind of more and more into this, it makes him more self-righteous than he was to begin with. And that's Babylon 5. All the characters in Babylon 5 go through some sort of breaking.
Right.
And sometimes it's a very painful breaking, like Garibaldi, when he just descends into...
Basically loses control. He's a very kind of control freak in a sense, and then he basically loses all control.
He goes into his alcoholism again and everything, and it's horribly sad. Actually, one of the saddest versions of that I ever saw was on West Wing. What's his name?
I don't know.
Not Toby, but the other big. Anyways,
my mom or dad. He
becomes an alcoholic again, and I've watched it spottedly, but that one scene when he kind of goes back to the bottle is just, it was sad. It was horribly sad, but it tells you something. And I'm rambling, so you want to interject here?
Well, something that you said made me reminded me of studying the classic Hollywood protagonists, which is I think is a phrase I've thrown around here before. But we like protagonists to be very driven towards something. They really want to have something, and that requires a certain amount of self-confidence and determination and stuff. And like you said, and that's one interesting way to play with that, to really make them, by really testing them and really going through a rough situation, like you said, breaking them down. That's a good way of testing how strong are they. They carry themselves with this much confidence and bluster. Well, are they really that?
The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
I mean, he's literally broken. I mean,
yes.
Very physically and
Batman,
emotionally. Yeah, Batman's Bane just snaps in half basically. And that's all, to explore who is he as Batman. And that's the whole point of that. Well, one of the many points of that movie. Because I think you got 3 levels of conflict. You got conflict that's, challenges you have to get over. It is more your adventure action movie, Like Star Wars. You're not exploring that much deep insight into breaking down the characters. It's just like, TIE fighters are coming. We'll fight them. We'll it's fun. And then there's, the kind of emotional breaking down, physical break, And then there's sort of the pile on, where you just hammer them, kind of just for the drama of it, but not necessarily for the sake of bringing something out of it, just to enhance drama. Yeah. And that annoys me. Okay. When done to a certain extent.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So now you're getting to the negative side of bringing too much suffering into a story. And I think actually that's kind of one of the reasons knowing Greg, probably why he brought this up, because I know Greg follows comics a lot, and comics are certainly an area that they've really been overdoing the darkness aspect for quite a while. I mean, it's gotten worse with DC more recently, but it's been it used to be that DC, I would say one of the reasons I prefer DC to Marvel is I felt DC was more optimistic in a sense. And it's not really, I can't really say that's the case anymore.
And the tricky part with comics is that you can't do the breaking down with moving characters forward when you got to keep this character moving constantly. Yeah. I mean, there's no end point. And so it gets really tricky. So sometimes you just put them through junk. They come out of it, beat down. They kind of build themselves. You put them through junk. They get beat down. Yeah. I mean, that's the story of Wolverine. Yeah. I mean,
well, it's the story of a lot of. I mean, like I think I read about 110 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man through the trade paperbacks, just because I had access to them and I was enjoying them. But after about that point, I think it was like they did their version of the Clone Saga, which, I mean, to their credit, they really simplified the Clone Saga, because I think the Clone Saga was originally like took place over a couple years, and they managed to condense it down to a trade paperback.
Nice.
So kudos to them for that, at least. But still, at that point, I just felt like Peter Parker had just gone through so much junk. His life was a mess, and he didn't really seem all the better for it.
And I guess that's, I think as a viewer, I think sometimes is where some of us dislike that sort of suffering, because you want suffering to have some sort of goal end, some sort of purpose, some sort of, okay, this is horrible, but is it revealing to us something about the character, about the world, or is it just to keep the story going? And that's the rough part about comics, because like in a novel, you have limited time, or a movie or something like that.
And like, I know you've said Battlestar Galactica.
I always felt like Battlestar Galactica had a lot of really good stuff about it, but it felt like they like that drama equaled suffering. Basically, oh, we're gonna make this even worse for them, just so that we always feel like nothing's good happening, and adds to the atmosphere and the tension. And that didn't play for me.
Yeah, you kind of get the sense sometimes, writers get they get it hammered into them that story has conflict. Story is conflict. If your character's, is, going through something, add it on, make it worse, kind of increase the stakes, which in general, those are good things. But if it's, again, it all comes back down to purpose. If there's no purpose then it just kind of becomes a story click, click off, this is what should happen in the story here, because that's what the formula says.
And maybe it's just because obviously, okay, random example, I was watching World War Z earlier in the week, which I really enjoyed. But, they start going one way, and, and this always happens in a well-written movie, here's the plan, and then within 2 minutes, the plan disintegrates, and it twists, and it twists, and it twists. And in that way, the conflict, you want to keep changing up. You don't want it to be a straight line. You want it to go all over the place. And I think sometimes emotionally they try to do that, but I don't know that it works the same way emotionally. When here's what I want. My goal is, it's like the love triangle. My goal is this girl. Yeah. And then, twist, 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 twist for 4 seasons. And you're like, it almost feels like being played with as a viewer or reader, as opposed to being on the path with them. If that makes sense. Yeah. And maybe that's the difference, and that's kind of a subjective difference. But whether you feel compelled that, okay, trust the writers, I'm going to go with this journey, or at some point you're like, this journey's not worth it. Yeah,
yes, and I've encountered that. I remember Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which I felt that way. I know I've complained to you. It's one of the few books. This was like one of the first Star Wars books, but it's one of the few books that I actively disliked. I should say that not the first book one of the few books that I read for pleasure, like outside of school, that I actively disliked. There's all kinds of books I read for school that I disliked.
Test of the D'Urbervilles.
Out of Africa. Oh man. But anyway, yeah, because in Splinter of the Mind's Eye, Luke and Leia crash land on like this swamp-like planet, and it's just it's a miserable trek from start to finish, in my opinion.
You're slogging through the book.
Yeah, basically. It's all survival stuff, none of the, fantasy adventure stuff. It's just like survival and slogging, and yeah.
So what do you think, and I don't know if there's a good answer for this in a general sense, well, in a specific sense or general. Anyways, what do you think are maybe some guidelines we can use to make suffering that's helpful? Because obviously you can make it horrible. I mean, I've broken characters' arms, I've brought them to the edge of death, I've killed them,
brought them to hell and back.
Bear through and back. So what do you think, we could give someone who's writing, like, how far should... And I think it partly depends on the genre and on the atmosphere that the reader knows up front. I mean, if you're writing a tragedy is going to be a tragedy. I mean, I used to kind of run around thinking all stories should end with hope, because that's from a Christian point of view. And I still hold that that's a generally true statement. But I think it might be more true that all stories should end with truth. Because I think tragedies kind of do a reverse slap in the face to show you something. Macbeth and stuff. It shows you the consequences of things properly. And maybe, sometimes that's the problem when bad things happen to good people relentlessly. Like, these consequences don't add up. As opposed to when Londo ends up in a horrible state, you're like, okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't like it, but...
He did sort of deserve it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's sort of... Maybe that's some of the differentiation, too.
That's certainly part of it. I mean, you have to bear in mind who your character is. Like, if you have a character who starts off that's very, very, very prideful or very heart of stone sort of thing, or what's the better word I'm trying? What does Exodus say? What God did to Pharaoh's heart?
Harden his heart.
Harden his heart. Yeah. If a character like that, you're gonna have to do a lot of breaking to really get through them.
Which is why a lot of my bad stuff happens.
Yeah. I mean, you have extremely hardened characters like Kalia or Makalos that would require lots of breaking to get through to them. On the other hand, if you have a character who's trying to be good, like say Spider-Man, then why the heck are you? At some point you want to feel like he's getting rewarded, that he can still enjoy being a superhero, because right now very few superheroes actually like being a superhero.
Yeah, because Spider-Man's whole setup is to be kind of snarky and fun-loving and
depending on which version you read.
Okay,
in some
I
versions
haven't read many modern ones.
No, I'm telling you, in some versions it's to make Peter Parker just as miserable as possible. I really think that's some people's goal. The other thing I'd say is know your medium. Know what kind of story you're trying to do. If people have a threshold, I think, for the show, whatever they're watching.
Like, for instance, if the movie has Mel Gibson in it, it's going to be painful.
Yes. The character will be tortured.
Yeah, one way or another.
Yeah. On the other hand, and I keep going back to comics, but it's just because it's kind of the most notable example of doing this wrong right now. Comics, graphic novels, they've got a wide spectrum, but at some point you got to remember that you are writing about people who dress up in funny costumes and fight bad guys.
The Watchmen?
Okay,
or just Watchmen, I guess.
Okay, well, see, Watchmen though at least has a separate. It's a standalone series. It's a mini series.
Well,
it's not like an
early
ongoing...
on they established the fact this is not your daddy's comic book.
Right? No. Granted. But if you think about, most comic books are probably not appropriate for kids 12 and under.
No, not anymore.
No, and that's it's a bizarre state that we're in. I know there's a comment from someone at DC, that someone had said that raised a huge uproar, and that they said to someone, and then later they kind of reinterpreted it as like, well, this is what he actually meant stuff for. But someone said that we make our comics for 40-year-olds, because if you want to write something kiddie like that, go do Scooby-Doo. So, and that was kind of the gist of it. And then there was this big outcry against it, and the very fact that there was kind of that, because that's ridiculous. Yeah. Because you want to be able to market your superhero comics to all people. So, but things like this are why the industry is kind of in trouble.
And then there's literary books, which I only hear secondhand from Summer, but where just be going along, and then some random act of horribleness will happen, like kill the person, the one person they've been trying to get together with, and it just and it ended.
Yeah.
And to me, that says more about your worldview than anything else. But and the thing is, things like that happen. But it seems like that should be the stuff that happens at the beginning of your story that you deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there is a lot of benefit to seeing how characters deal with suffering.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what the sort of story you want to write.
Yeah.
But I don't much care for stories that end with suffering, unless, of course, you're Terry Gilliam and you want to end a movie with Brazil, which I think I mentioned on here before.
You have, yes.
Which his happy ending for Brazil is the man going insane.
Yeah.
So,
but
that's Terry Gilliam.
Well, and you're kind of set up for that. I mean,
it's a dark comedy.
It's a dystopia.
It's a black comedy, very much.
And and there are times where you may be able, I think you could go a little darker than kind of skirt the boundaries. I mean, the thing about Battlestar Galactica, I mean, you do have the possibility that is a medium where people, kind of do expect some dark stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you need it because it's set up in we are the last people, we're being attacked all the time. You want the stakes to be real, but sometimes just there's suicides and it was just relentless sometimes, and that's I think what got me.
Mm-hmm. And it's that fine balance is in terms of
And some people eat that up. Some people love just as much. If you're more, in some ways, if you're empathetic and you like to kind of feel that.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of taste involved, certainly.
But to me, I'm just like, why? She's like the only good person in the show, and she committed suicide or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
For no, like, with no setup. Well, there might have been a little. I don't remember now, but.
Anywho.
So I think that's probably about the end of our.
I think we've summed up in our typical long-witted nature.
Yeah.
All right, so are we ready for the next segment then?
Yes. So we need a soundtrack. All right, we're back, and I think we're going to start with your soundtrack, actually, Timothy.
Oh yeah, that's right, we are. Okay, so for my soundtrack, I'm going with another selection from Balance and Ruin, the awesome OC Remix Final Fantasy VI album.
Very, very awesome.
This one is called... hang on a second.
Ascension of a Madman. No. I want to throw my Kefka in there today.
This one is called A Tranquil Rest, which doesn't sound like it has much to do with suffering, but the original song is called, from the original soundtrack, is called Rest in Peace. And I think this is basically from the time when the world was basically ending.
Oh, isn't it when he died, too? The death music?
Oh, maybe it is the dying music.
Well, it's still suffering.
In either case, yeah, it still works. And this is remixed by a guy called Forrest Powell, who apparently...
I think lives in Fort Wayne.
Not too far from us. So maybe we'll have him on the show sometime.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be awesome.
All right, so anyway, this is A Tranquil Rest. So, okay, we're back from the song.
Oh, hi. So we're going to a section we haven't done for a while called Crackpot's Corner.
Okay, now that we're actually recording again.
So this is our section where how we used to do it, we'd come up with some crazy idea and just kind of talk about it. You know, what if we did such and such a thing?
Yes. It was before we actually had a section called What If.
Yeah, but and like Tim had it was the game show where it was like a action adventure sort of escape building. Mm-hmm. I watched. It was kind of fun. I mean, it's just kind of there. Who Done It? Did you hear about that? It's a reality TV show.
I did hear
like a murder mystery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was kind of. I mean, it won't get another season, but it was kind of fun. It was almost more fun, kind of seeing how they set things up and some of the logistics of it. But it was entertaining.
I was tempted to watch that, but it was one of those things I just never got around
to. I wouldn't have. It would happen to be recorded at Zach's or somewhere, and I watched it. I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun.
Yes. So. Okay, but anyway, the way we're kind of retooling this is occasionally you find out about weird stuff on the internet.
Things that are just like, that exists?
Huh? So this is Crackpot's corner in a sense that these other people were crackpots to think this up.
And we'll say, hey, let's go with it.
Yeah. So
this is, of course, from Tim, because it has to do with Muppets.
Yes, and I tweeted about this. I tweeted about this on Twitter, which is where you do such things.
Not just on your street corner. Tweet, tweet. Retweet, and then someone does it again. It's,
tweet. Yeah, tweet and we tweet. We're on a boat. Tweet fell off. Who was left?
All right then.
That was random. All right. Anyway, so in this case, the bizarre thing I found out is that apparently there is a new form of perfume now that is inspired by the Skeksis from the Dark Crystal. I am not making this up.
Okay, you gotta read this line. This is fabulous.
Okay, and this comes to us through Tough Pigs, the a great Muppet fan site. And the columnist says, do you ever say to yourself, I'd like to pay for the opportunity to smell like an evil lizard creature with my society's recognized currency if only the opportunity would present itself? If so, really? I mean, really? Hey, to each his own. Also, you're in luck because that's exactly what's happening. Weirdo.
Did they actually make this scent?
Yes, they actually made. Well, there's actually like 5 of them based on different Skeksis.
Different Skeksis.
Skeksis, yes.
Okay, Dark Crystal. If you guys have not don't know what the Skeksi is, they're these evil lizard creatures.
They're kind of vulture-like.
Yeah.
And they're pretty disgusting and frankly terrifying even to adults.
Yeah. And apparently you would like to smell like one.
Yeah, and they named them they actually have named these different scents after the different. Some of the different characters. There's Skegzok, the ritual master, which, according to the description, has an incense of deception. Frankincense Alpanax, I don't even know what that is. Hyssop Chapaka, and Opium Poppy Accord.
Opium. Mm.
Then there's Skiyung, the Gerthin master, which has the aroma of brute force and destruction. Vetiver, smoke, steel, and dragon's blood resin, which I would love to know what that smells like.
Yeah.
Oh. Then there's Sektek.
Where do you find dragon blood at this age?
And then there's Skektek the scientist, metal and stone beams of dark light.
Stone beams of dark light. That is quite a phrase.
Hyssop, black currant, black viola, passion flower, and myrrh. Okay, so the last part doesn't sound too bad. Then there's Skina.
So like Mary and Joseph took some of their stuff and make Skeksi perfume,
I guess.
Big market back there in Herod's day.
I guess. Yeah.
Herod probably smelled like Skeksi.
He probably probably does. He might like this one too, from Skekna, the slave master.
Ooh.
The essence of vile gluttony, an abundance of spices, sweet cakes, thick creams, and opulent liqueurs, mixed with a sense of whip leather and rusted padlocks.
Whip leather.
Yeah.
Oh.
For everyone who wanted to smell like dominatrix or a Skeksis or something.
They need candles of these.
That's disgusting. Actually, I think it's a little creepy, too, that they call it the essence of vile gluttony. If you know anything about Dark Crystal, essence is... I'm not sure I would want to smell like that, because that's a little creepy. The funny thing is, this is not the first time...
This is not the funny thing?
Well, okay. There are a lot of funny things. Actually, my biggest question is... Why just Skeksis? There's not a Dark Crystal-based perfume off of, like, the Mystics or the Geflings or the Pod people.
See, those might be actually like, okay, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little mystic right now.
Yeah, Pod people, I'm feeling... Who wants to smell like a Skeksis? I mean, seriously.
Not in the right mind.
I don't know, not in the right mind.
Left mind.
No, the funny thing is, this is not the first time that there has been a line of perfumes based on from Jim Henson things. Well, now, like
Muppets and perfume are not the first things that go together, unless you say Miss Piggy.
Yeah, there was a Miss Piggy.
Okay,
one.
I can kind of get that.
That makes sense. There was a Fraggle Rock. There was a Fraggle Rock one, which okay, kind of. So they were like
so like 5-year-old
radishes
kids are having perfume.
More like the ones who were kids in Fraggle Rock.
Oh, okay. It's later than.
No, this came out like a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
So
like the garbage people and stuff.
I don't know about the trash heap. I don't think there was one of that. But there was also a Labyrinth themed one.
Oh boy.
Unfortunately, there was no Bog of Eternal Stench.
Thank goodness. Only you have to buy it once.
Yeah, but apparently it included things like fairy bites, goblin cider, hobble, and of course Jareth had his own. Jareth would have to have his own perfume.
Yes. But okay, who's sitting around? Perfume's not like, it's not like your normal run-of-the-mill thing to make stuff out of.
Especially like franchise.
Yeah. So who's sitting around saying the labyrinth would make a great way to make perfume? I mean, I've never sat around and been like, I just watched this movie. I wish it could smell like the main character.
Yeah. I have absolutely no idea, although I do know, again, Jim Henson Company has done some odd marketing related things besides perfume before. If you follow Jim's Red Book, which is a Twitter feed that does some neat thing, like, because Jim Henson used to keep kind of this journal of entries, and so it has a lot of neat information about the Jim Henson Company's past and his history and all that. Apparently, around the time Dark Crystal came out, they attempted kind of a fashion line sort of thing of like high end fashion and stuff, which to a certain extent,
you can kind of go with it.
Well, high end fashion's kind of weird anyway.
Yeah.
I don't really know who buys it, but and the Dark Crystal does have a very distinctive art style to it.
So I can it is a very distinctive art style. You could play it in other artistic media.
Yeah, it would fit in pretty well, like if you wanted to do, say, a masquerade party of some sort, because those tend to be kind of...
That's the Labyrinth.
That is Labyrinth, but Jim loved those things anyway for some reason. So
Tim, what if you could make perfumes of any sort of book or movie, what would you do?
Oh man, I knew we were going to talk about this, but I haven't really thought that far ahead into it. I would say, actually, I think Narnia might be really good.
Oh, I would actually probably go with that.
You know, Queen Susan, Queen Lucy themed fawns. Sure, I'm sure
a Turkish delight.
Yeah, I could see Narnia having a pretty good line of.
Always winter. That's a nice fresh.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, nice.
That
fresh
could also be
fragrance.
a gum, but.
Yeah, I suppose if you wanted to get really far out there, you could do like some underground, related to the silver chair, those weird underground.
You need a puddle glum one. It's like you're depressed, put on this perfume.
Your own, a unique scent for that. Oh, some of the Aslan's land. Well, I don't know if that would work, but I'm thinking like some of the islands from Dawn Treader.
Dawn Treader would be nice. Yeah.
You got some fresh flower scents that you could tie in.
I think that's better than Skeksis.
Better than Skeksis. I'm sure we could think of a lot that are better than Skeksis. For that matter, Middle Earth, you could do some interesting.
Urk-hai.
I was thinking elves.
Oh, okay. You can go with
the scent of leaves and fresh dew. So
you don't want like
starlight,
essence of shalab or anything like that.
No.
Or put on, if you're feeling down, put on some gum. and feel like fresh like fish all day.
Oh man.
I don't know if anyone wants to smell like Gollum.
No, I'm sure they don't.
A lot of fish.
Yeah, a lot of fish and mud and worms. I'm pretty sure is what it would smell like. Or if you're ready to feel a very earthy essence of Treebeard.
A Treebeard. That would Treebeard would be nice.
For mossy and oak and maple and
Sam's Oliphant Holiday.
See, I'm trying to think of actual ones I might want to smell. You're trying to think of the most bizarre ones.
No, that one could be it's kind of exotic. It's kind of African and.
I would not want an elephant or an oliphant.
No. But Sam's perception of them.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like adventure in a bottle.
Okay, I guess I could see that. I tell you,
or it could be cologne.
It would probably have to be cologne. Yeah. For that matter, actually, I'd love to see a Hobbiton cologne. It's probably smell like ale and
fresh mowed grass.
Fresh mowed grass and what do they smoke?
On the pipe, yeah. Is
it pipeweed?
Pipeweed, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds bad nowadays.
That would be. I'd buy that.
That'd be nice. Yeah. That'd be a good cologne.
Again, candles. Candles are the way to go.
Candles, yes, exactly. I like that. Yeah, that could work.
I think of other popular franchises that we could.
Evangelion.
Ah!
The aroma of fresh blood.
Fresh blood. That's That's it. That's all you need. Fresh blood, lots of it,
And lots of tears.
oceans of it.
Fresh blood and tears.
Fresh. If you think your life's bad, smell this. It's like almost a medicine. Like, you're depressed. Here, wear this perfume every day, and you'll feel tons better.
Oh dear, that's terrible. Okay, Iron Man.
Inside the suit.
I was thinking more like steel and wires.
Oh, okay, like that ionized metal sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Like working in Tony Stark's shop, basically.
Okay.
So a real manly smell.
Well, you just call it Iron Man, and it's like you can have like Axe commercials, and
there you go. All the women like cling to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That would be cool.
Let's see. Okay, what about Avengers for that matter? I'm not sure. I doubt that a good Hulk would make a good one.
No, it would be green. But
you could probably smell.
It just smells angry.
You could probably sell a Loki one nowadays.
Yeah.
A few years ago, never would have thought that, but apparently Loki is.
And it needs to come. The bottom needs to look like a little his horn helmet, just like a little version of it.
Yeah, have the big arc.
Big arc thing. Yeah, I think that would be good.
That makes sense.
So yeah, if I was more clever, I'd come up with another one, but nothing coming to mind. I don't know if I need any sort of like.
You really just need think of the last franchise you saw. So okay, World War Z. World
War Z. Dead bodies. See, that's just sad.
That is pretty sad.
Just massive amounts of dead bodies and burning flesh.
Okay, well, I think we've milked this joke far enough. Yeah. So, since we have a little.
So, but here's what if you listen to this, please comment. Go to Derailed Trains of Thought.blogspot.com and give us your dream franchise perfume.
Yes.
Like Inception. I think Inception needs to have a perfume. You smell it, and then you're not sure you smell it. You smell something underneath it, and then you smell something else underneath that.
It'd be a very ambiguous scent.
Very ambiguous, subtle smell.
The funny thing is, I'm sure people will come up with other perfumes that actually exist.
Well, that's true. I'm not. You may not believe this. I don't know much about the perfume world.
Or cologne.
Or anything that smells.
Because I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was, say, Captain Jack Sparrow scent out there.
Probably.
Yeah.
Savvy.
He's very savvy. I mean, if Miss Piggy and all these other, if Skeksis have a perfume,
that seems like the line of like the beginning. Like, if Skeksis have a perfume, ... and you just fill in the blank.
Then why not?
Internet meme. There you go.
Then why not Winnie the Pooh?
Why?
The scent of honey.
Scent of honey. Why not?
And thistles and acorns and I don't know.
See, that's pleasant when you talk about it like that.
Yeah, exactly.
See, you make good sense. I just make weird ones.
I make sense?
You make sense, yes.
Yeah. All right.
So that's about the show today.
We had such a long one last time. I think it's okay to wrap up with a short one. And you do have a long soundtrack at the end of today's episode. So.
It's rocking, so I think you'll forgive me for it being 5+ minutes.
Yes.
And you can always just tune out if you're done. There won't be anything at the end except, there might be a moment of zen.
Yes, we might have a moment of zen.
So
we'll work on that. Okay.
Should I introduce it?
First, let's make sure we've given them the contact info.
Okay, yes. You can get a hold of us at derailedtrains@gmail.com. Have we checked that email lately?
I did last month actually when I was.
Oh, last month. Okay, so we're probably good.
when we were getting ready to launch, I checked it then, so I should probably check it again afterwards.
And you can also visit our blog.
Yes.
DerailledTrainsOfThought.blogspot.com.
And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes if you haven't already.
And currently we'll be doing live streaming about once a month, about every 4 Thursdays.
Yes.
I mean, because not technically a month, it's every.
That's true. It's not always necessarily exactly a month apart. So yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So, anyways, the song you're hearing is.
No, they're hearing our theme. Actually,
okay.
One other thing we should plug in here. Don't forget to also be visiting childrenofthewells.com.
Yes, we really need to do a better job of explaining this to people, but it's really a lot of neat stories going on right now. Or if you're. And it's easy to catch up at this point.
Yes.
You can download thing for your pleasure.
We just finished serializing the Fall of the House of Kaiser. As of we're recording, that just wrapped up.
Yep.
And the Doctor's Assistant has like 2-3 chapters.
2-3 weeks left.
Okay. So,
And that's a very good story. We have another story coming late October. That should be quite exciting. Good time to get on the bandwagon. It's a character-focused, post-apocalyptic fantasy. And it's good stuff.
It is good stuff. Okay, Nick. Now you can introduce your song.
Oh, finally. Okay.
Since you're the host.
I thought the song came out blue, and I thought, well, since we're talking about suffering, this title worked. So it's called "And in Her Self-Loathing and Despair, She Found Wrath," remixed by Louisa, and it's a song from Chrono Trigger, and it's
always a great choice.
You can't go wrong with Chrono Trigger.
No,
So.
absolutely not.
That's
All
all
right,
we've
you
got.
landlubbers. Thank you for listening to Derailed Trains of Thoughts on this Talk Like a Pirate Day, or at least so it be when we be recording. I had to throw that in
Yeah,
there.
I can't do pirate, but that was a good pirate.
Oh, thank you very much, laddie. Now get me off this cold planet you got me on here. It's not to my liking.
Well, we can do that.
All
All right. Well, this has been Nick.
And this has been Tim.
That's all we've got.
Adios.
Bye.
DEEEEEEP.